Guys, how's it going out there today? If you're new to the channel, my name's Garrett and I shoot reviews on camera gear that I use every single day for personal use, for weddings, automotive, corporate, what have you. But today I'm very excited because I've broken into the cinema line of lenses and I've done it in a budget-friendly way. And we're gonna talk about that today with the help of this guy right here. This is the ROKINON 85mm T1.5 cinema lens. It has some sweet features that I really like that you get from cinema lenses without the cinema lens price. Everything you saw right there was actually shot on the ROKINON 85mm. Just to give you an example, we're going to do that here in a second as well. Compare it to my 50mm just so you can see the differences in the compression and how a T1.5 aperture makes a huge difference whenever it comes to background separation with your foreground and your subject and everything. But first, I want to talk about this lens because this 85mm is very special. Number one, like we talked about, this is a budget-friendly option for anyone wanting to get into the cinema line of lenses. Now, what does that actually mean? What does a cinema lens do that's different from your normal photography lens? Number one, the biggest difference in this lens right here and a normal photography lens is it has declicked focus, declicked aperture. If you notice, they are silent so that when you're racking those, you're not hearing the noises or actually seeing the clicks in your video while you're rolling. That's something that's very, very specific to cinema lenses. Also, it has a T-stop instead of an F-stop like a normal photography lens. Now, a T-stop is more accurate as far as how much light the lens is actually letting in to the sensors. So that's why in the cinema world, they actually use a T-stop versus an F-stop. But some facts about this 85mm. Number one, this thing can be had brand new for $350 right now on B&H's website. Once again, comparing that to normal cinema lenses, which start in the thousands of dollars, it's a great option. This thing's cheaper than it's actually cheaper than most photography lenses as far as like your quality ones, and it still retains a good quality image, and I absolutely love it. I keep it on the front of my Fuji for weddings and personal use. Now, I do have to adapt it because this is a Canon EF mount, so I actually have a Fringer adapter. It's an EF to FX for the Fuji. We'll talk about that in another video. But like I said, it can be had for $350 brand new. I actually got mine used from KEH.com for about $260 shipped and everything. And honestly, it's been some of the best $260 I've ever spent because I've actually blown $260 in other ways that wasn't as good as this 85mm. But anyways, this has a 72mm thread for your filters, for your ND filters, UV filters, all that good stuff. And like we mentioned too, it also has your declicked aperture and focus. So what we're gonna do is, before we talk about some things I love and some things that I don't love about it, we're actually gonna go out and compare it to my Canon 50mm 1.8, the Nifty 50. You know, the 50mm on my Fuji is about an 85mm equivalent, whereas the 85 is actually about a 135 equivalent or something like that. You guys can do the math on the crop factor, but let's go ahead, compare those, then we'll come back and do the pros and cons.
Little by little
after that comparison, I hope you guys noticed a difference between even 1.8 and T1.5 at how much separation you got. So some things that I really love about this 85. Number one, 85 millimeters, or on my Fuji, like I said, about 135 millimeter equivalent, equals excellent compression. This is something that I use for close-ups when we're shooting weddings, bridegrooms reading their notes to each other, detail shots, things like that. This thing offers so much bokeh. For you bokeh-licious lovers out there, this is the lens for you when it comes to that. Secondly, with the focus ring and the aperture ring being declicked, they're very precise. And I've even noticed too that whenever I'm racking focus versus a photography lens, especially like a kit lens like I have right now in front of the Fuji, whenever I'm racking focus, I have to yank that thing around the lens barrel like 3 times before I'm actually nailing focus. With this thing right here and how precise the focus ring actually is, it doesn't take very much turning to actually find your focus. And when you do, it's easy to lock it in right there and you're done and taken care of. Now, the only con really to having a T1.5 aperture, especially when you're new to manual focus only, which is what a cinema lens is it is very hard to nail focus at T1.5, especially on the fly. Whenever I'm flying this on the front of my glide cam, I actually do not run it at 1.5 because it's so hard to keep the correct distance to keep everything in focus that you want to. I will normally run it at about 2.8, which still with the 85 millimeters offers a great separation, good bokeh. But I'm not missing focus and kicking myself in the butt because I didn't get the bride or groom's eyes in focus during the ceremony, because that's a one-shot deal right there. So I always ride at about 2.8. Now, if I'm shooting handheld detail shots, yes, I will go at 1.5, 1.8, just so I get even more separation than what it normally does. So just remember that. One con to a T1.5 aperture is it is pretty hard to nail focus, especially when you're new. It definitely takes some practice to get used to. Now, the other con to this lens, for me at least, is because I rock a pretty small setup with the X-T3, even with the battery grip, it's still fairly small. This lens is pretty heavy on top of my glide cam. I also rock the Shinobi monitor from Atomos. But it's a pretty heavy setup. It makes my Fuji a little bit more bulky, something that I've just had to get used to, do a little bit more working out, I guess, so it's not as heavy, but it is a pretty heavy lens. If you're used to that, disregard what I just said, no biggie, I may just be weak. And the final thing that I have against this lens is, and I can't really complain too much about it because it is a budget-friendly lens, it's a little bit plasticky feeling. You know, with a cinema quality lens, you would expect to have a little bit more rugged feel to it, but I will say this, even though it's plasticky feeling, it actually is textured, and that makes it nice. It ups the quality a little bit, but you know, for 260 bucks, I really can't be complaining. It delivers results. You guys saw in the examples, the image quality coming from this lens is phenomenal. I have no complaints with that. And with that being said, should you buy this lens? This lens, I believe, is something that's great to have in the camera bag for one reason, and that is separation. If you want the buttery bokeh look in your videos, or even in photo, I've used this for a couple of photo shoots, which is funny, but I was just trying it out and it actually worked out nicely, delivered some good results. I would recommend it for you bokeh-licious lovers out there. If you're not interested in that, you know, look on to the next lens, but you know, for 260 bucks, I don't think you're wasting your money either way. That's just my 2 cents on it. But let me know what you guys think about the 85. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you want one? Drop those comments down below. Also, if you like my content, give me a subscribe, give me a like. It definitely goes a long way for us little guys out here. Y'all have a good day and we'll see you.